today we're going to be doing a little bit of talk with Kris. She's one of my 42-day reset clients that's been very successful in implementing all the changes that we've needed to get rid of a lot of symptoms in her life that were bogging her down, mainly due to stress, imbalance in her gut, and just a lack of knowing what to do, kind of that overwhelmed stage where it's like, okay, I know a lot of the things that I should be doing, but what amount do I need to do to be successful? What things do I need to incorporate for me? There's a lot of stuff going on in nutrition, and it's just really confusing. And that's honestly where I think a lot of the people are, a lot of women specifically in their 30s and 40s, 50s, things are changing. It's not as easy to sustain things that you were able to in your 20s. Life is just really busy. So I'm going to go turn it over to her and she can explain kind of who she is and where she started.
Well, I'm Kris, obviously. And when I started this program, I think it's been almost 18 months ago, maybe not quite that long ago. I'm trying to remember. It was beginning of last summer. I think around early June. Last summer. Just a little bit about me. I have two boys that are extremely busy, and I joke that I am an underpaid Uber driver because that truly is what I feel like I do spend my time doing, is running my kids back and forth everywhere they need to go. My husband is self-employed, so his flexibility is maybe not as great sometimes. So I am the primary when it comes to kids' activities, kids' appointments, things of that nature. I was also working full-time. When I started the program, I was the head of finance for a community college, so a lot of responsibility there. Also trying to manage working in a remote environment, which I had done for a number of years, but it just different leading a team of people when you're in a remote environment rather than kind of boots on the ground with them on a daily basis, and was also working on my master's at the time that I started this program. So had a lot of irons in the fire and a lot of things going on. So kind of as Danny mentioned, when she kicked this off, it was how to simplify the things that I knew I needed to do without feeling like it was just one more thing I was adding to my plate.
So tell us a little bit about where you were at, I guess, like symptomatically, what you were feeling in that stage in your body or even mentally. Obviously, with what you're willing to share, there's things that are, going to be private, but kind of some of the gist of like generally how you felt.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is I just felt tired all the time, like so tired that I felt like I needed to nap, usually right around 2:00 every afternoon. I could tell like I needed just a good 15 to 30 minutes. If I could lay down, catch a quick nap, I'd be fine for about 4 to 5 more hours. But very tired, lethargic. I wasn't sleeping well at all at night though, which was obviously contributing to how tired I was. I felt achy. I've had some neck problems for a number of years, but just it was compounding, and it was my neck, it was my joints, it was my back, it was everything. And just that overall feeling of I felt swollen and just puffy all the time. And I know that I know a lot of women feel that way, but I really felt like I was just bloated all the time.
And then what up to that point had you done like throughout the years that kind of like led you to that point? I'm going to point out some things. I know that you did a lot of CrossFit for a while, some like really intense exercise, different diets and that kind of stuff. So tell us a little bit more about like the history of kind of like what you had tried to do up to that point to, prioritize your health. Because I know that you were trying very hard. It just wasn't the right solution for you.
Well, as you mentioned, I feel like I tried everything up to that point. I was one that I worked out 5-6 days a week, doing different, I'll call them high intensity type workouts, didn't understand why I could never lose the weight. And yet I knew they were hard on my body and hard on my joints at the time. I probably shouldn't be doing those type of workouts, but I felt like that was the only way to really get a good sweat in, and felt like it was actually doing something to help me get some activity in and lose some weight. I had tried everything from a diet perspective, everything from I'd cut gluten for a period of time. I cut out all dairy for a period of time, went pretty extreme at one point in time with what I was allowing myself to eat. And while I felt good, I knew it wasn't going to be sustainable, particularly when you've got a younger family that, I did all the cooking. And so they were never going to want to eat the types of things that I was at that time allowing myself to eat. So just trying to I felt like I was trying everything. I tried various supplements. I tried a naturalist, I guess you could say, or a naturopath at one point in time, but never really found success and never found anything that I felt was sustainable for me.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge problem with a lot of women, is that we are marketed and sold these really extreme things like high intensity workouts. And those
Yes.
are necessary at some point for your cardiovascular input. But if you do them on top of all the stressors that you're talking about that a lot of women face, full-time job, running the kids around, even the caloric deprivation, people, that's kind of like been the popular thing is calories in, calories out, eat less calories. So if you're doing these life on top of a lot of cardio, on top of not enough calories, you're going to burn yourself and run yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
And so one thing I too want to mention is I know that you had done a gut test before and you had kind of like went on it on your own and you weren't successful with it. And that's the thing is that when we actually ran the same gut test, created more of a plan for it, got you on the right supplements, you were a lot more successful understanding the science behind it, I guess, like understanding why things were the way they were. And I think that's another problem with some of these tests that people are able to do at home. They're kind of marketed as like an empowerment factor where it's like, you can do this for yourself at home. And I agree up to a point, but you still have to have a lot of background. And, I don't know a lot about accounting and I don't feel comfortable doing my own taxes every year unless it's super simple. And as a small business owner, it rarely is.
Right.
And so it's kind of one of those same things is that I think that that's one of the problems with our medical system is that I really understand why people don't want to go the medical route because a lot of times what they're given is pills or an eye roll, like everybody's tired, everybody has stress, normalized. And like these things aren't normal. They're very common in our modern world, but that doesn't necessarily mean that these things are normal. And I mean, if you look around the health statistics in our country, you realize that like this is a big deal, the way we're handling it. And I think that, my heart goes out to people because they start to try to engineer some of these things on their own without a lot of background. And then they still end up maybe like this, a dead end, a worse place, or, basically just like treading water. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, your perspective of the 14-day reset. Did you feel like things were attainable? Did you feel like things were extreme? Did you feel like things were complicated? Tell me a little bit more about that process from your perspective.
I would say the 42-day reset was great for me because it was the best way I can describe it is it was simple. It gave me some very simple tools that some of them I was already doing, like doing a lot of walking, drinking a lot of water, trying to do as much to mitigate my stress as possible on my own. But it really just, it allowed me to simplify some of the things that I was already doing and tie them into how they were going to benefit me. So I know one of the things that we found out early on was with my gut, not only was it some food issues, but it was also really some intense stress issues that were causing some of my stomach issues. And so just balancing, the walking, the water with the meditation and the deep breathing really helped me to kind of pull it all together, I guess you could say. When I started it last summer, I was in the throes of my master's at that time. Kids were in baseball season. So we couldn't have been busier, honestly, at that time. But I felt like it was just a very simplified approach to implementing a lot of the things that I had learned or a lot of the things I knew, but put it into a structure. I need structure. I think a lot of people need structure, particularly when it comes to managing your health. Everyone needs that structure. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of information out there. And I'm an accountant by nature. So, I see things somewhat black and white at times, but there's it's almost like information overload or that paralysis analysis that just so much information is too much to take in. And this was really just a way for me to, again, simplify, trust the process, I guess you could say. And it was amazing to me, just the little things that I was doing, how immediately I could start to feel some of those benefits.
Right. And I think that's another thing too, is that I myself need structure too. That's the thing is that when you're learning a new habit, you have to have more structure around it. And I think people get scared by structure because they're like, I don't want to have to do this forever this way. And that is just your foundation, your starting point. I've seen you grow. Talk a little bit about how you've now been able to self-regulate a little bit more or have that awareness where you can tell that you're not doing the same routine exactly as we set out for you in the beginning. It's probably a little bit more lax. And tell me how that's gone as far as just for you being able to pull yourself back on track versus this all or nothing mentality that affects so many women, especially.
Yeah. And I would say that's probably been the biggest part is it gave me the tools that I could carry forward with me, that it wasn't just about the 42 days. It was, what are the things that I know I need to implement on a daily basis throughout the rest of my life? So things like the morning walk. Am I great at it? Do I get it done every day? Absolutely not. But I can tell a difference when I do and when I don't, and how it just is. It's amazing how it sets that tone for my day. Same thing with the water. I can tell when I am and I'm not getting enough water. And it's usually the first thing. That is the easiest one for me, that if I'm feeling stressed, or if my body's feeling just off or whatever, that's the biggest thing for me, is to increase my water intake, because that's an easy one to do. And also, just when it comes to the gut analysis itself, I know, through a series of tests, what the foods are that trigger me. And so I can pinpoint and say, okay, I've had too much gluten, for example. I need to really cut back on that. Or I've maybe had too many cocktails. Okay, I know that I need to cut back on those as well. So it's really, the thing I really liked about it is it wasn't strict. I never felt like I was locked into something that I had to carry forward, but I always had points that I could reference, or things that I could try and implement again, to really kind of reset my body and get to a point where I was feeling better.
Like I said, that self-awareness of like where you're figuring out, like where you're reverse engineering when you feel like crap. It's like, okay, well, like, let's stop for a second. What has my last week looked like? Oh, like I haven't had time to get my walks in because school started and I'm doing the carpool. That's where I need to recalibrate and focus on this next week forward. And that's like the beauty of having those tools and understanding them and realizing how they benefit your body. That's actually one of the rules of habit change, is being able to make it attractive. And in the beginning, you're going to have to kind of like trick yourself into making it attractive. And maybe that making it attractive is, I paid money, so I'm just going to do this. But then if you get over the hump where it's like, okay, now I know that like I get an afternoon headache if I don't get my morning walk in, because then I grind on the computer for 6 hours and I don't give myself a break. I feel like crap. But if I get my morning walk in, I don't get that headache. And then you start to learn yourself, just like, kind of like a child does, like yes or no, like these things work or they don't. And that helps you, avoid bad behaviors and avoid some of the symptoms that aren't pleasant for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd say the biggest thing is just that what I've learned is this is about progress, not perfection. And I'm very much a type A personality. And so I'm typically a perfectionist, and I've learned to have a little bit more grace with myself, I guess you could say, over the course of this last year. And kind of, as you said, I have my good weeks, my bad weeks, my good days, my bad days. But I don't beat myself up quite as much as what I used to. And I also, a lot of people, I think about people that diet frequently, and I was one of them, that you'd have a bad day or a bad week, and then you'd be like, oh, well, I'll start again the next week, or, oh, I'm just going to start again the next month. And this has really taught me that every day is an opportunity to start over. And there are little changes that you can make every day to reset. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I think that's really what I've probably embraced the most from this, is that it is about progress. It's about, what are the little things, because when you break it down, they really are little things. What are the little things I can do every day to make progress towards ensuring my long-term health is the best that it can be, and that I've done what I could to sustain that.
And honestly, I think that that's like the best thing, the way you can put it. It's not going to end. I mean, like, and that's kind of sometimes defeating at one point, but I think it's also kind of reassuring that it's like, there isn't really an end piece.
Right.
Like, you can keep making forward progress. And I think that consistency and basically having more better days than bad days is kind of like how I start to look at it now in my week. It's like, if I can get 4 to 5 days of whatever happening pretty good, that's going to keep me on the side of progress and moving forward, versus sliding back when I'm always looking for a perfect 7 out of 7, like I used to do. Anything else you'd like to share that I haven't touched on?
One of the things I was going to say that I've enjoyed about the coaching in particular with you is that I know I've been off and on, and I've had, weeks where, like when we were doing weekly sessions, I had weeks that were great and weeks that weren't so great, but I always felt like you allowed me that flexibility to have a bad week or to have a bad day. And we'd always talk about, okay, so what's the small adjustment that we can make going into this next week? And that's a lot of encouragement from someone that, an perfectionist trying to get over that and stop having that expectation of everyone else and myself. It was nice to know that I could have that failure, but yet move forward. So it's that fail forward mentality that I really appreciated.
Well, I appreciate you putting in all the work. I like clients like you that are willing to fail forward, because I have some clients, in the past that it's been very difficult because of like these all or nothing
Mhm.
mentalities, and I set them goals, and if they don't achieve that whole goal, um, then they just like don't want to do it at all. But I just appreciate you always putting an effort forward, and you make it easy to coach you. Um, you're always very wanting to understand too. I think that
Mhm.
that helps you, is that when you want to understand and grow, it helps you integrate the information. You have a why. And I think too, one of the biggest things that you've kind of adapted is a different identity. I think that we kind of wrap ourselves up in the identity of a work or career problem or being a mom. And I think that you've really stepped back and said, I want to be a good mom. I want to be good at, a good employee, but I also want to be able to take care of myself, and I have to make myself a priority. And that's what lot of women are missing, because generally we're caretakers, we're nurturers, we're selfless. But that's what kind of gets us into these holes that we can't seem to get out of.
Yep.